Hey everyone, how's it going? Well, we're taking a break from doing Long Halloween. Well, just for a little bit. Next review, we'll be back on it. But until then, we'll be continuing the theme of mystery and trust with Transformers. More than meets the eye. Let's jump into the story. Warning, spoilers. Now, last time we dived into IDW's Transformers comics, I covered Robots in Disguise, where we see the Cybertronian War is over and the race has been split into two once more. But instead of Autobots and Decepticons fighting for control of the planet, we have Bumblebee and Rodimus debating on whether or not they should stay. Bumblebee and Prowl are obviously committed into staying, while Rodimus and fellow Autobot Drift plans to head off and try to find the fabled Knights of Cybertron. They're believed to be one of the greatest warriors and the ones to help Cybertron in a quote-unquote golden age, but left the planet, some believing that it was to help enlighten other worlds and colonize. Where they end up is still a mystery, but once finding a piece of a map that might lead to their whereabouts, the two decide they're gonna go try and find them. Bumblebee and Prowl believe the two would be on their own, but that quickly turns false when the bots like Ultra Magnus, Red Alert, Perceptor are all on board, and the numbers grow fast as well. Rodimus begins a campaign to anyone who would be willing to go on the quest to find the Knights. Even bots who Bee and Prowl believed would stay, like Chief Medic Ratchet and Chrome Dome, have decided to tag along. And after the two are told about this, Prowl is pretty pissed off. After creating a meme, he makes a call to make some adjustments to their ship, known as the Lost Light. Hands down, the coolest name for a ship. Speaking of, we get to meet some of the other crew members, like Brainwave. Okay, this is a little bit of a correction on my part, so throughout the review, I was referring to him as Brainwave. That's wrong. His name is actually Brainstorm. My apologies. Won't happen again whenever I get back into reviewing more than meets the eye. But for now, yeah, I'm going to be calling him Brainwave in this video. Sorry. A fellow scientist who will be working with Perceptor, though not all happy with it. A therapist that collects model ships known as Rung, and Rewind, who is Chrome Dome's partner, or as the Cybertronians call it, Conjuxendura, who is also a records keeper who in fact almost always records everything that he sees. Granted, not everyone's a fan of that, but it is useful. And then we have Megatron. No, I'm just kidding, it's just Swerve. Yeah, that comes later. There are other crew members, obviously, about 208 to be precise, and you get to know some of them. Others, unfortunately, are cannon fodder, but in here, it's mostly these bots that I just mentioned. And our last-minute tag-alongs, Cyclonus, Whirl, and Tailgate, who was actually asleep for a long time. How long? Oh, not too long. Just 6 million years! Now, if you recall in Robots in Disguise, the ship supposedly exploded, killing the crew, but turns out that that wasn't really the case. The ship quantum drive jumped before they were ready, spewing them halfway across the galaxy, about to crash to a nearby planet, with several of the crew being shot out. They're able to find some of the missing crew, but unfortunately 3 were killed in the fall, though they did end up meeting up with a fellow Autobot, Skids. Off screen now. Who suffers from a bit of amnesia while also being chased by giant robots that seem to only be able to say 1984. They're dealt with, but another problem pops up in the form of a Spark Eater, a monstrous creature that, as the name suggests, devours a spark of Cybertronians. To make things even crazier, while the crew are heading out, Cybertron actually gets a message from someone claiming to be from the future, asking them to contact the Lost Light as soon as possible and to avoid certain things. Things like not opening a coffin, not letting someone take Skids, not to go to the medical facility Delphi, not to look into the basement, and there was one more, but the message cuts out before they can finish. Who sent the message? How did a Spark Eater get on the Lost Light? Why is Skids being chased? And what exactly did Prowl do to the ship before it launched? Well, you're gonna have to read this volume, and in fact this entire series, to find out. They do a great job setting stuff up, and the premise is very akin to classic stories of voyaging adventurers like Sinbad, Narnia, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and of course the Odyssey, where our heroes go on epic quests while facing several dangers on the way, some not even relating to what they're doing. And, like in this volume, happens almost simultaneously. The series is written by James Roberts, who is pretty big in IDW's Transformers, with him working on the miniseries Last Stand of the Records and The Death of Optimus Prime, which is actually featured in this volume, but I chose not to cover it since I feel like it's something that I should talk about for another time. As for the characters, let's start with Rodimus, who, as I mentioned before, I actually prefer more than Optimus Prime. Now, I know I'm in the minority, but yeah, I really like the character, especially in here where he's trying his best to be a good leader and proves worthy of the title. Rodimus isn't just doing this mission to find the Knights of Cybertron, but as Ratchet reveals to be, they also intend on finding several Cybertronians who are still MIA, and even willing to offer some, like Cyclonus, to help find fresh starts. He will make mistakes, but is also willing to learn from them, and puts his own life on the line to make things right, all while having a smile on his face. Then there is his second in command, Ultra Magnus, and third, Drift. I'm going to talk about these two together mostly because we don't get to know them too much, but we do get a clear idea of their personality and what they're all about. For example, Magnus being this very strict by-the-book soldier who barely trusts his own crew, while Drift is the more kind-hearted spiritual type and is very optimistic. In fact, Rodimus is usually turning to him to help when it comes to giving some bad news. There are elements of Drift's character they don't discuss too much in this volume, but I won't hold it against it since those elements don't really come into play in this particular story. There is also some foreshadowing regarding Magnus and his character that is pretty surprising when you actually get to see it. Up next, we got Ratchet, who's pretty much like his animated counterpart, where he's played off as the cranky old medic, who is doing this mostly as his swan song. He's tired and he constantly talks about how his hands occasionally cramp up now. It's getting harder for him to operate on people. Ratchet also hopes to find a successor for his title as Chief Medic on the way, which with the crap the crew are going to be dealing with on a daily basis, they're definitely going to need all the help they can get. Then we have the ancient warrior Cyclonus, who in this interpretation is neither Skywarp or Bombshell or even identifies a Decepticon. Yes, he did assist Galvatron, who here is actually not Megatron, he's a separate being from him, who was leading the Decepticons at the time, but he makes it very clear that he wasn't doing this to follow the Decepticon cause, but he was doing it as a fellow warrior and Cybertronian. At the end of the war, he actually helped Rodimus out and was even able to go around without a control chip, but even though he was free to do whatever he wanted, he doesn't feel at home anymore. Like Ratchet, he was tired and no longer saw Cybertron as his home, now just wanting a new home to rest, and he trusts that Rodimus will help him. Though he ain't no pushover either. He makes it very clear to Whirl that he is going to kill him. Speaking of Whirl, he's crazy, violent, and makes it very clear he only is on the ship because of circumstances. That circumstance being that Ratchet chose not to let him die in the middle of nowhere, after he was wounded by an explosion caused by Tailgate. He's very unpredictable too. One point he's being all buddy-buddy, the next he's letting someone get eaten by a spark eater. It's clear he wasn't always like this, but that's a story for another time. Tailgate is a very interesting character, that they made him a bot out of time. As I mentioned, he's been out of the game for 6 million years. When he woke up, he thought he was on the original ship to the Ark, and that Nova Prime was in charge. He does his best to get up to speed with things, and is very friendly to most of the crew. Tailgate is also very sensitive and really doesn't like violence, which is funny when you consider that he's mostly hanging around Cyclonus since, well, Cyclonus is the only bot that he recognizes from his time. As for Chrome Dome and Rewind, the relationship is very well handled, though they kinda start off pulling a Young Avengers where their same-sex couple, Wicked and Hulkling, are first played off as just being very close friends. But in here, they kind of cut it off a little earlier since you could just tell just from how they talk to each other that they are definitely more than just that. As for the two separately, Chrome Dome is definitely a guy with some serious issues. In fact, when we first see him, when he's telling Prowl that he's going to leave, he also gives Prowl some hell when he tells him that he will not use his talents to help him with his job. And what are those talents? Well, to make a long story short, he can access other bots' memories, even when they're deceased, and make it more difficult, but he can do so. though. It's a very useful ability, though it also has drawbacks, to the point where it could actually kill him if he's not careful. He's mostly really chill, but also very blunt, where yeah, he will call you out on your crap if you are pissing him off. As for Rewind, not much I can say about him. He's pretty much emotional support for Chrome Dome, though before they left, Rewind made a very shady exchange with the Decepticon Swindle. For what? Again, you're gonna have to read the series to find out. Finally, we got the rest of the crew like Red Alert, Perceptor, Brainwave, Rung, Skids, and Swerve. I don't get to do too much, where I think that each of them deserve their own individual spotlight, but I will say out of the minor crew members we do get to see in this story, they definitely are the ones that leave a pretty big impact, especially Skids and Swerve, who right after meeting each other kind of start off having a buddy cop thing going on. Plus, Swerve gives out probably one of the best jokes in the series when it comes to trying to think of a new name for the crew, where he suggests Crusader Cons. As for the Spark Eater, it is simply a dragon, or in this case, Dragori. A horrifying monster that the crew has to deal with. It doesn't really have much of a personality, it's just wild, angry, and hungry, which is enough to make it terrifying. Next we have the art by Nick Roach, who definitely was influenced by the more sleeker style of Transformers Prime, though also having a bit of an anime influence too, with some of the characters' expressions. It's really cool and definitely helped with the comic's more energetic style compared to the style of Robots in Disguise, which is more calm. In the end, I highly recommend reading More Than Meets the Eye. It gives lesser known characters time to shine and introduces a really great, compelling mystery and story. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and next time we'll be talking about Batman Long Halloween issue 2 on Thanksgiving. Yeah, I'm giving myself a little bit of a break. I did a lot last month and I do have plans for December, so yeah, I need a breather.